let's talk about the guy who rocks people, Sean O'Malley, taking on Paiva. Rulon Paiva, I vaguely remember him. Nothing stands out in his skill set to me. That's, spectacular. It's really basic stuff. So I like it because I consider myself a basic coach. But I think when fighting these guys that have hype behind them, when they have spectacular move sets, when they have big power, I think you have to come out and get in their heads a little bit, try to do something they would not expect you to do to get an edge. I don't think you just play it straight. I think you have to try to switch things up a little bit. And he didn't. He was too basic. And he ended up getting caught waiting around. There's some things he was doing with his head movement and footwork that were, if as a standalone, they were correct. But he would try to move his head and move his feet and then try to punch. When you got it against a guy like O'Malley, these are things you have to do together to get in tight. Kai Kara France, taking on Cody Garbrandt. Man, what can you say? I think that City Kickboxing team is okay. So they have the champions in Adesanya and Volkanovski, but I think that they have other guys in there that we're not paying attention to. I think this is probably going to be one of the first teams, if they can get a guy in every weight class, that they can hold championships across the board, everywhere. But they got to get them to that level. And it's funny when you're saying got to get them to that level because Kai Kara France is actually 23-9. He just hasn't been in the UFC long enough to get that championship opportunity just yet. But he looked good. I think a lot of these City Kickboxing guys look really, really good, really, really strong. And I've heard some things about Cody. People saying, especially because he loses the way he loses. It's not so many how many times he loses. That you just can't keep getting your head knocked off and stay in this game. So I heard people talking about he needs to have that serious conversation with himself. Man, I just think he needs to find a home and stay there. Whether he's going to be 125, 135, 145, I don't care. But I don't know. It just doesn't. It seems like he's an island unto himself now, and we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think he's done. I think he's still maybe one or two more. But if he loses one or two more, like he just recently did, yeah, he's done. Jeff Neal versus Santiago Ponzinibio. I kind of like Ponzinibio, but I don't know what happened in that fight. Just kind of fizzled out. And Jeff Neal, I guess since when he fought Wonder Boy, I don't know. He just plays so safe. His coaches had to get in his ass, to get him to go fight. I don't know. And then, I am not sure, but I don't think you have to do 170 as your third fight from the top. Tuivasa could have been with the energy he brought. It could have been your third fight. I just don't know why Jeff Neal and Ponzinibio, why anybody thought that was going to be a good fight to take you into your championship fights. I don't know. It's just styles make fights, and I wonder if these matchmakers are really looking at the styles together. I know you can look at individual styles. I know you can look at win records. I know you can look at knockout and finish ratios, but let's look at these fights together. Let's keep it moving. Juliana Pena taking on Amanda Nunes. First of all, I know the Lioness took an L, but let's keep in mind she's also the 45 champ. Man, we get down on our champion so quick. Not only is she the 45 champ, but she's defended both titles. And we can't give credit to all these other guys who've been champs, Daniel Cormier, Conor, that don't defend the titles. And Amanda's defended both of her titles as champ. She didn't just accumulate the titles, but she defended those titles. Amanda's done a lot, and she's not done. I mean, it's just a bump in the road. She's not done. She still has the 45 title. She still has to defend it. She still must see TV. Now, Pena is just somebody else you want to see. And yes, if they redo this fight, it's just more money on the table. And if the money goes up, that's why you will see this fight. The only thing you have to question is, who do they do this fight with as far as a fight card? Charles Oliveira taking on Dustin Poirier, man. I know a lot of people that said that Poirier should have just walked in and demolished this guy, but sometimes I wonder what stats people are looking at when you say stuff like most submissions in the UFC, when you talk about most finishes, when you talk about most paydays. I don't know. There's a reason why these guys have those stats behind their names. Even when Dustin has great stats himself, being a former interim champion and all that. I just don't know. And I know some, I think it was Joe or Luke Thomas, one of them commentated later saying, yeah, he beat Conor, but did he beat the Conor of old, or he beat a broken down Conor? And this nonsense about Conor walking in to get a title fight, not necessarily, and not necessary. And what I mean by that is that Oliveira has made a name for himself. Chandler has made a name for himself. Dustin Poirier made if Conor doesn't get back on track and fight and win, what's going to happen is the game is going to leave him behind. It's going to leave him behind. Justin Gaethje and Chandler, oh my God, Conor can't have a fight like that. Conor cannot fight like that for 3 rounds, much less 5. And there are guys in the game who are doing more now to take your spot. And Conor had better pay attention to that. The game doesn't necessarily need Conor to draw. Now, fighters, in my opinion, still need to learn what Conor did to make himself visible and valuable. But the game itself doesn't necessarily need a Conor. And the reason I say the fighters need a Conor as an example is because to make yourself big as Conor, it goes beyond just winning fights. And I say that because Conor hasn't won a championship fight in a while, and yet he can walk back in and be at the front of the line over and over. That's amazing to me. You can plug in mixed martial arts fighters into Google, and Conor McGregor's name is all over the internet for a guy who constantly is not fighting. Whatever Conor does well outside of the cage is what other fighters need to learn from Conor. So that's my basic take on UFC 269. I thought that if anything was wrong with Nunes, was this, again, just like some of the other fights where, they're standing in the pocket, just like Jordan Wright, standing in the pocket. That's not made for MMA because there's too much happening in that in-fight range. That in-fight range is a transitional range. It's not something where you want to maintain. Same thing with Dustin Poirier, just getting caught and then fighting on the defense. So, you've got to strategize to be in a very specific range, and you want to transition from whatever outside range or inside range that you're starting from to get to the real range that you want, and then try to force your opponent to fight from there more often. And the thing about Oliveira that I really liked was when he got Dustin against the cage, his clinch game was on with the knees, the body locks, the transitions to the back. He's got a lot to his clinch game. And I like that because it just shows that the MMA clinch game is different. It's just different. And had he been trying to do just consistent Muay Thai in the clinch, it wouldn't have worked out for him, and Dustin probably would have beat him. But the minute that MMA fighters accept the fact that we don't strike like classic boxers, we don't strike like classic Muay Thai guys, we don't have to. We don't have to strike the way they strike. And if you figure that part out, you're going to start seeing better mixed martial arts fights overall. That's my take on things. I am Coach Sess, and you've had words with the Mad Coach.